Happy Wednesday and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Rocketeer Minute, where each and every day, Monday through Friday, we go over 1 minute of the greatest adventure movie Walt Disney's ever made, the 1991 Joe Johnston-directed feature, The Rocketeer. I'm one of your hosts, Jim O'Kane of TVDads.com.
And I'm Hal Bryan, an airplane nerd from the Experimental Aircraft Association here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And wait, Jim, I hear something.
You're listening to a special Billy Campbell episode on the Rocketeer Minute. Ladies and gentlemen, Billy Campbell.
My goodness, boys, when are you going to do something about that music? It's just mortifying.
Well, we were working on the choir, but they haven't shown up yet, so we'll get it. We'll get it right next time. Don't worry.
It's really tough to get 500 madrigal singers all in one place at one time.
One of these days,
for two amateurs like us.
Our budget doesn't allow it. Yeah, but yes. But Billy, thanks so much again for being part of the show. Here, 38 minutes into the greatest adventure movie, as we always say, that Walt Disney ever made.
Oh, and my pleasure as always.
We are excited to be talking. We're in the middle of a very, very Hollywood scene. The feature player is talking to the wallpaper, and although he has obviously ulterior motives, and
more than just the usual ulterior motives.
Yes, there's motives on top of motives.
Yes,
and we're back with Neville and Jenny. I really appreciate Jennifer Connelly's appearance to look like she's just been crying for quite some time, and I would imagine that this is not one take, but it's just getting into that constant. I'm sure that's like glycerin and stuff like that under her eyes and things.
I don't think so. She was really very what do you say? Easily into the moment.
Wow.
So I doubt there was any glycerin happening there.
Wow. Well, she's doing a great job. I have a question. I just saw a recent Vanity Fair video. They were talking with different celebrities and getting mistaken for people. And they actually had an interview with Jennifer Connelly. And she said people would come up to her and go, "Aren't you Demi Moore?" And I was wondering, who do you most frequently get mistaken for when somebody's like, "I know who you are." Who's the most typical one that you get?
The one that I will always remember. I am not often mistaken for anyone else. But yes, there was one time I recall, and I learned a lesson from it. I was in an airport. I think I was in the Denver airport, and you can just tell sometimes when people are sort of seeing you and recognizing you, and this guy drew a bead on me, and he just started moving my direction from across the way, and he came right up to me and he said, are you?" And I smiled at him and said, yes I am. And he said, "David James Elliott from JAG. I knew it. And I was like, oh, this is embarrassing. So I just I pretended to be David James Elliott, and I signed an autograph for him, and I hope I did him okay.
So now I have a new holy grail in terms of memorabilia, and that's to find a Rocketeer poster autographed by David James Elliott as Billy Campbell. It's the strangest thing when somebody spots you like that. And, and that, like Jim was saying, that little Vanity Fair video underscores this very, very well. But it's strange to think that we recognize somebody and somehow we know they're somebody, but then immediately can't place, who they are or what we might know them from.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually have a mistaken celebrity story. There's a thing, anybody who's ever been to LA knows this thing. There's a look. If you go into a restaurant, everybody turns around and looks at the door to figure out if you're somebody. It's just one of those things. You go into a diner anywhere, everybody turns around and looks. Is that somebody? Is that somebody I should know? I was with a good late friend of mine from San Diego who was visiting up in LA, and I'd met her at a diner just below the Hollywood sign, a little breakfast place near Ned Beatty's house of all places.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's right up Beechwood Canyon.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you're heading toward the sign. So you go into this little place, and there's maybe 15 tables in the whole place. And so we go into this place for breakfast, And everybody turns around and looks, and there's these two women sitting across from us. And at the time, back when I had more brown hair, I had a bit of a scruffy beard. It was kind of just more than a 3-day growth, but less than Daniel Boone. So I sat down, and this one woman goes, "I know who you are." I'm like, "What?" She said, "You're James Cameron, aren't you?"
Oh, wow.
And I said, "No." And so my friend, my late friend Lori said, "No, he is. Don't tell anybody." I was like, "Would you stop?" And
Wow.
after telling them, I'm not James Cameron, they would not believe me that I was not James Cameron. So I wound up, my friend took out a Sharpie, and I actually signed their menus. I wrote, "You're kings of the world, James." I wasn't lying about the James part, so I wrote that.
That's
and,
true.
And I am sure those two ladies went home from their Hollywood trip convinced they met James Cameron.
That's funny.
Why should I spoil it for them?
Why? Very, very quickly, while we're off in the weeds just a little bit, which we're no strangers to that here, I once kind of accidentally insulted James Cameron. I was at the X Prize launch of Spaceship One in the Mojave Desert, which we talked about a bit with when Eric Lindbergh was on, and I found myself standing next to him. And this whole production was just amazing. They had there was basically a soundtrack, a musical score to the launch and the space flight and everything else. It was really nice. But somebody kind of leans over to Cameron, desperate for something to say to him, and says, "Boy, this kind of sounds like that music from Titanic, doesn't it?" And Cameron just sort of smiles politely and nods. And then, without even thinking, I said, "Yeah, but thank God there's none of that dreadful Celine Dion." and Cameron just looked at me, just shot daggers, and then just walked off. And I said, "Well, I had a chance to meet somebody interesting, and I guess we'll check that one off the list." So certainly James Cameron must be listening to this. So
we
I
won't
do
be having
apologize.
him on we won't be having him on the Titanic Minute whenever that ever happens.
But anyway.
Well, we were talking about a movie about a guy with a rocket pack. So let's see. And
we had a guest, didn't we, Jim?
Yeah,
there's
right.
There's a third person here, isn't there?
That's right. Yeah, but we are talking about Hollywood, and so we're watching Neville, who obviously has a lot of game. He knows how to do the whole tilt the head and talk about.
Oh, Neville has game.
Great game.
That voice,
and a wig. That wig is just. I want that wig. I am going to go to Comic-Con as Neville as the Laughing Bandit. I think that's the way to go.
And then take your mask off at the last minute so we see that you're really Sir Reginald.
Sir Reginald, yes. But she's going to read for the part of the Saxon Princess, which I thought the Saxon Princess was the one that just said, "Oh, my prince." I thought that was...
I had always thought that as well, and I think that's how it's credited. So is he just going to step in and fire the producer's niece? Who in reality at the time was the director's wife.
Although
it's such a soap opera.
In thinking back on it, this Jenny originally had the line "Oh, my prince," which she says here that she's never read for the Saxon Princess.
True.
So she could be further on down. She's basically going for Olivia de Havilland's role. And so he just works out the whole South Seas Club, which of course. Poor Clifford had said, why not, while you're dreaming, why don't you go to the South Seas Club? So this is, and it's boring to Neville. So
right. Oh, the way he lays that whole thing out is just
We read for the
wonderful.
part of the Saxon Princess.
Yes. I think it might be rather wonderful.
Might be rather wonderful in the role.
Gosh,
it's just mellifluous, isn't it?
Yeah, he's. If we can ever get Timothy Dalton on the show, all I want to do is have him do my voicemail message. Jim's not here. Check back later. Yeah, it's like watching the clouds blow away, and there's the big sunshiny smile from Jenny as she watches Neville walk away.
That is a great transition to watch, and that's one of the things that's been really interesting to about going through this movie so slowly is watching wonderfully talented cast and watching sort of the transitions just on their faces, even if you've got the volume turned down. Billy in an earlier minute, and I sorry in advance, this is just random sort of sucking up, and I don't mean it to be. It's quite sincere, but what you mentioned, the "Oh, my prince" line when Jenny is giving that line to Cliff. if you watch your face across those few seconds, it's fantastic. It's absolutely amazing to me to watch that. And I meant to bring this up then. There just wasn't enough minutes in the day. But as she starts to say it, you are just instantly captivated. That, oh my prince, you are just hooked. You're seduced right there. And then a fraction of a second later, you watch your face shift slightly. And even with the sound off, now you're concerned and a little bit disappointed because you think that after that, Neville Sinclair is going to be kissing the girlfriend.
Yeah.
I have a question about the background character in second 36. There's a fellow with suspenders wearing a dark blue shirt and a light gray tie. Just from the profile, and that's the way his hair is kind of scuffed up. But I'm wondering, could that possibly be Joe Johnston in Mufti? He's just kind of like mixing in the background.
Oh, let me see. You read for the part of the Saxon princess.
Yes, we'll just keep coming back to that.
Let's see.
He's.
You mean right there, right in the background between them on Jennifer's shot?
Yeah.
It does look like Joe, but
I can't. And we're gonna have to do this at another time to show you a minute 25. But we have now figured out that Joe is the fourth guy at the diner behind Skeets and Goose and
Malcolm.
Yeah.
What? I don't remember that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to review and consult on this on in between our episodes. We'll look at that
sure.
and have the confirmation later.
We confirmed it was him because he's not smiling. And I have never seen a picture of Joe Johnston smiling.
No, Joe, that's a funny thing. Yeah.
Which for somebody who brings so much obvious love and affection and joy to every film he does, it just seems funny that to look at him, he's sort of dour and
Joe's
stern.
a funny, he was a funny mix of things because he was really lovely to work with, and he was very sort of low key and not. He didn't seem to have a lot of angst or anything, but you're right. He hardly ever smiled.
I guess if you got $40 million in a budget and you've got to come through for the people that are putting the money up for this, I think you'd be pretty grim about the whole thing.
The people that you have to come through for this and whom you dislike intensely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But,
so, Billy, how?
Go ahead.
Do you recall how many days or how long you guys would have been shooting on the fake movie set here, the movie within the movie?
I don't think it was more than a couple of days, honestly.
Interesting. Because obviously you were around for the scene earlier than this when when you helped Neville Sinclair bring down the house, as they say, and but yeah, just always curious about that. And there's so much. It's amazing to me again and again and again how much set dressing there is. These old lights and the banners and so much of what looks like vintage, appropriate period film artifacts. That must have been really strange to sort of build a set inside a set.
I think it was lovely, and it really kind of it's a really fun sequence because it's the movie within the movie. It's the movie sort of commenting on the fact that it is a movie. I really loved it from the get-go.
And I guess trying to remember not to cut when they're yelling cut.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to say cut, but the other words
cut
we're
when
use
he says cut, not when that guy says cut.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love the line. Well, maybe that. I mean, that might be upcoming. When he's trying to teach the princess how to speak, honey, acting is acting like you're not acting. So act, but don't act like you're acting.
Exactly.
I love that one.
Piece of cake, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we discussed that one with another very entertaining guest coming up here pretty soon.
Well, actually, I think haven't we already? No, we haven't. No, yes, we have. We have.
I'm sorry.
We have discussed it. That was back
I'm
last
sorry.
week.
Recording out of sequence, it tripped me up again. That happens.
Yeah, no, we had 2 exciting days with Lisa Peterson, who was the noblewoman.
Lisa was lovely.
And she said the same of you. She was very impressed by you. She said you're a lot of fun and you're such a nice guy. I think was the way she phrased it. So it's mutual admiration society there.
And if you need me, I'll just be bouncing around in my time machine, getting my tenses mixed up. Yes. That will have been a lot of fun to do when we get to it.
Yeah, no, it was great. I was saying earlier that I had watched Robin Hood, and I completely forgotten that they do have a battle in just about that very same set in Errol Flynn time, fighting
Yeah.
Basil Rathbone, and they work their way down on a sword fight around a circular staircase toward a main hall, and just watching it, I was like, this is disturbingly familiar. And of course, it's here. It's a backwards reminiscence, but yeah, it is a nice touch. We have a question from the reader mailbag. Well, let's see. It says, "Hey Jim and Hal, the next time you have Billy Campbell on, it would be awesome to hear more about his relationship and interactions with Dave Stevens. Joe Johnson mentioned at the D23 screening that Dave was always on set and practically directed it. I'm paraphrasing here, but Stevens is such a mysterious figure. It would be great to hear any stories or influence he had. Hell, I would even love to know if him and Billy ever just sat down for lunch at all."
Well, we did, and Dave was around quite a bit. We became very friendly, and it was really, really. I think sort of Joe's thing about him practically directing the film was maybe a little tongue in cheek or something, but he was around quite a bit, and I really sort of treasured the time that he was around because he drew the thing. I mean, I really admired him. I for a long time wanted to draw comic books. It's what I sort of wanted to do after I got out of art school in Chicago. I had planned to go to Joe Kubert's School of Comic Book Art in New Jersey, and but life happens, and I chased a woman from Chicago west instead of going east to Hollywood, and that happens. So anyway, point being, I'm very much into comics and graphic novels, and so practically worshipped Dave's work, though I really didn't find it until I had actually been up for the movie. And so it was a huge thrill for me to sit around with him and pick his brain about drawing, and he seemed super pleased with the choice of me and the part, and we just got along really well and had a great deal of fun just hanging out.
There is a great picture of you two together in the official the souvenir magazine, the Disney Tops magazine. And Jim, I know we've talked about whether we'd be okay to scan a couple of images for that and plead fair use and share them out there. So we'll figure out if that's okay.
It's part of the review, yeah. So
that's true. It is part of the
review. We're reviewing the movie, so we can talk about
reviewing the movie and the magazine. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you two. Looking at that picture, you two did really resemble each other. And you were saying that in an earlier episode, you were saying how Dave really drew himself as the Rocketeer. And, that's kind of obvious when you see the picture of him.
And speaking, before we get too far away from this one, speaking of viewer mail or listener mail rather, I actually got one too, and Jim doesn't know about this one. It was a text message to me. Billy, you again, assuming that we can trust the historical record, you did an episode of Fraiser.
Yes, I did.
And so a friend of mine, let's call her Megan because that's her real name, is rather obsessed with the show. And just adored you as Clint Weber, and said that we should either ask you if you know what's in I believe it's the drink called the Pink Weber, or dare you to sing a bar of the song "Isn't It Romantic?"
Oh, good God! Well, first of all, I can't really do either of those things because one, I have no idea what's in a Pink Weber. Though I could just sort of decide what's in a Pink Weber. And I remember one New Year's Eve, I made the fatal mistake of partying with my sister, and she had got me a bottle of tequila, and she also had champagne, a magnum of champagne in her fridge, and some pink grapefruit juice.
Oh my goodness!
I combined them all and
Wow.
made really what was rather a tasty drink, but I was violently ill. So I'll say that is what a Pink Weber is, which I
Finally.
will never again drink. And then as far as singing a few bars of that. I cannot, as my mom was fond of saying, I cannot carry a tune in a bucket.
Well,
So-
that was the gag on the episode, though, wasn't it? That was
Yeah.
sort of the one thing you couldn't do, or that
Yeah.
Clint Weber couldn't do.
I think that's right.
You know,
And
handsome and witty and all
you
the
know,
other
even
things, but-
though I'm so self-conscious about singing that, you know, in front of people, of course I sing to myself all the time, but that even though the character was supposed to be, you know, sing horribly, I was, and of course I did, I was still incredibly self-conscious about it. I'm
Oh.
like, it's so weird.
Oh,
So
that's
weird.
tough.
No.
And you have to live with this forever. Everybody bringing it up years from now. I love that show. And
Remember that time you did such a bad job of singing? Well, it's like with poor Lisa. Remember that time when
Yeah.
you did a great job of acting like a bad actress? So
although she told us nobody ever brings it up, she said even her friends forgot that she was in the movie. So, but anyway, with this,
leave it to us.
Yeah, we brought her back. She made her come back through us. But we're going to leave the world of Hollywood here and go back up to the world of Santa Maria with that fantastic tracking shot of the three planes, the biplane and two monoplanes
yeah.
just
Oh, yeah.
lapping the course of the Bendix, and you get a good view of the scale difference between the forced perspective of the oil derricks, as the derricks in the front are about twice the size of the derricks in the rear. That's about second 45 of this current minute, and
right.
there's a big derrick and a very little derrick, but it does look good when you're shooting along the horizon.
And this, this scene and everything, all the aerials shot around Santa Maria are just they're a vintage airplane spotter's dream. There's so many things to see, and I know we'll get into that more as we go on. But just very quickly, since the first time we've seen them in the air, these three hero airplanes. In front, you've got a replica of the Travel Air Mystery Ship, which we've talked about that a little bit. We talked about Pancho Barnes racing that airplane, Jimmy Doolittle racing those. 5 of them built, sort of real ones were built. This is a beautifully done replica. One survives fully intact on display at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, and then another original one was in pretty bad shape after a crash, but the bits and pieces of it are in the UK, hopefully to be restored. Right behind that, the silver one is the I think it's a 1936 Ryan STA, and then there's the Great Lakes 2T1A biplane behind that, and that airplane was built. I'm trying to recall exactly, probably right around that same time, that mid-30s time frame.
Let me ask, is there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
Please.
just as a airplane know nothing, would biplanes have been racing monoplanes, or are they sort of? Is there anything inherently less zippy about a biplane than a monoplane?
Wow, you sound like a plant. That's wonderful. What a great question, Billy. Have a seat, pour a cup of coffee, and for the next 2 hours. So no, it is a great question. Well, there have been some enormously fast and streamlined biplanes over the years. The more surface area you have out there, and then in particular, the more lift you're generating, which 2 wings generate more lift than one, simply put, then the more drag. So these airplanes in 3 here are in fact not well matched at all. Although kind of interestingly, the Great Lakes biplane and then the silver Ryan STA, their top speeds were very, very close. That would be a meaningful race, even though the silver airplane looks so much sleeker. It has to do with largely being a smaller engine. However, the Travel Air Mystery Ship, that's an airplane that could do 230, 240, maybe pushing 250, maybe not quite 250 miles an hour. And the other 2 airplanes, their top speeds are about half of that.
Okay.
So not a real valid race here. What you're seeing here is not racing. What you're seeing here is beautifully done, formation flying as we're cruising around. But absolutely lovely shots, and all of the airplanes scattered around.
Yeah, you've got the Jenny in the background there, I think, is on the ground.
Yeah, actually, right behind the Traveler, you've got, that's Miss Mabel. That's the standard J1. We're just like a Jenny, just a little bit bigger. Okay. And there is what I'm pretty sure is a Jenny that we see a little bit later parked along the ramp. And then also right back there, you see that beautiful silver airplane with a single round engine up on top. That's the only one of its kind that exists. It still exists, still flyable today. It's called a Fleetwing Seabird. It's an amphibian. And I didn't know this till just recently, but it was fairly recently picked up by a friend of mine named Greg Herrick, who's based out in Minnesota, but has a staggering airplane collection all over the place. Just
great thing for the Land of Lakes, yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's the monocoupe there as well, that beautiful white plane with the red wings.
Yeah, you see the red and white monocoupe, and there's Gullwing Stinsons and Waco cabins and BK cool. Bird, Cessna Airmaster, a little bit of everything. There is also this is also one of the only minutes, and you see an airplane's near and dear to me, probably the vintage type I have the most time in, and that's the de Havilland Tiger Moth. Right at second 49, you see this. So all green airplane, like a dark green fuselage and pale green wings and tail, although that may just be the lighting. So British biplane, again, very appropriate for the era, just didn't have a huge role in here. But another one of those airplanes we talked about tied to Great Waldo Pepper.
Right. Oh, the green one down there with the light green wings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how about that blue one? I don't know, at the end of the line of the Bendix. I was just wondering what that one is.
It's hard to get. I think in later minutes we might get. Oh, sorry, you're talking about the small dark blue one or the blue and white biplane?
No, it's a monoplane, and it's at the end of the row. There's like 4 planes lined up.
So it starts with the green Tiger Moth, and then at the other end of the row is the little blue one you're talking about?
Yeah.
That's the Cadrone racer replica.
Okay.
That was another one of these things done by Bill Turner, who did the Miss Los Angeles, the Brown B-2. He built the Hero GBZ replica, and then this one, this French racer, again from the era, one of the just most ridiculously sort of sleek and modern things. It looks like it should be quite a few years newer than just about everything else there, but it's really not. It's very appropriate for the period. That airplane's been out here to Oshkosh a couple of times in 1 year. I think we talked about this in an early minute. We had it on display with a whole collection of classic Citroen cars. It was just beautiful.
Just slightly off subject, I'm looking at all the buildings, the hangars and stuff there. How much of that did they keep at Santa Maria? There's 3 hangars and then this sort of little place that served as an office with the wings over the door.
Right. To my knowledge, and we are in talks with the curator of the Santa Maria Museum to come on, and hopefully, at least chronologically as these minutes go, should be very soon. To my knowledge, and Jim, jump in if you know better, I think the only thing that really survives is the big Bigelow, the Hangar 3.
Oh, gotcha.
Sort of the hero hangar, and that's the basis of the museum itself.
Right.
And this is very locked off. There's in between the Hangar 3, that entire runway and everything is fenced off, and there's a line of trees along that line. So it's not as open as it looks here. Over the past 30 years, I guess that's expected.
The Red Great Lakes biplane is on display, or at least was fairly recently at the Santa Maria Museum. So if you want to see one of the hero airplanes from this shot, it's still right there. Still flyable condition, still actively registered, but displayed at the Santa Maria Museum.
Okay, I have a minor correction from one of our listeners. George Bradenhoff writes in that the Cadrone C460 won the 1936 Grieve race and the Thompson race, but did not participate in the Bendix race.
Ah, sure. So I can certainly understand that it wouldn't be necessarily there participating, and so I just say, but sort of generally speaking, in terms of could this airplane physically have been there in the era? In other words, it's not a 1945 airplane, something like that.
Right.
But that's a wonderful detail to know.
This is people we're attracting to the show, and I really do appreciate all the folks writing in and talking about this stuff, because it's fascinating. It's even more fascinating when you hear more facts about the thing. Bill, you were in the middle of all this watch. I mean, I would guess that some of this was shot second unit, that you didn't have to be there, but you must have been seeing some of these planes whooping overhead while they were shooting this.
Oh yeah, we were up in. I was up in Santa Maria for the whole time, and so often I was out there when I was not in scenes, just camped out by the camera and watching all the fun. So I got to see most of it.
Wow. Hal, can you talk anything about the gas bags that are there? Are they are they typical for that era?
So they seem a little bit older to me. Those would be, as you correctly pointed out, at least the one on the right. is a gas balloon. So that would be filled with helium. You notice it's sealed at the bottom. One on the left actually I think looks like a traditional hot air balloon that's maybe a bit of set dressing supposed to look like this other gas balloon. So those were things that certainly would have existed quite a while before this era. That's not to say you wouldn't have some of them around and still be using it for some things, but basically going back as far as the U.S. Civil War, which I know has come up in conversation on this show before, really the first iteration of any kind of aerial unit for any U.S. military was the use of balloon, just like that one on the right. On a tether, they would raise them up for observation purposes. And to keep bringing things full circle, we've talked about the famous pilot Pancho Barnes. Her grandfather, Thaddeus Lowe, was the one who kicked that whole thing off. So it was, technically speaking, if you allow a loose definition of the term, was sort of the first military aviator in U.S. history.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was at the Battle of Fair Oaks, which was in southern Fairfax County. They were used as observation balloons, being able to see past where the artillery lines were on the following hill. And they really didn't change that much in the time from, I guess they were still being used in this round shape in the 30s.
Boy, you'd have wanted to be really careful about being out of range.
Exactly.
And one of those things, I can't imagine too many things more horrifying than suddenly realizing that you're just within range.
And your balloon has been popped.
Whoops. Yeah. And I'm not sure parachutes wouldn't be invented for another 40, 50 years.
Right.
A little bit of a trick. But it's just amazing seeing all. I can imagine. Well, we are going to be talking with the air coordinator here, but just trying to line this thing up and getting the the request for proposals from Disney of what we're going to need is this, and it's like this must be a dream come true for people putting together air races and stuff for movies. Just a fascinating time.
Oh, I just saw a crew truck. Yeah.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. If you look in the so when we cut to the three planes, the first shot, they're coming.
Right.
Then there's a reverse sort of behind them.
Right.
And
look at that.
Look on the left hand, in the left hand corner, there's a crew truck.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
How have we never seen this before?
No, I'd never seen it.
That's amazing.
You would have to. It would go by so fast. I mean, I'm going to play it in real speed here.
Right.
And you just
two frames.
Yeah. Wow.
But
That's
sure
funny.
enough.
Well, it pays to go through these things so minutely.
It really does. In a fairly quickly upcoming minute, we'll see a modern, what at the time sort of modern day Cessna 172 or 182 sort of motoring along, just minding its own business while Miss Mabel takes off. So,
Okay.
spoiler alert. Sorry.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Watch for that in the following minute.
Yes. Oh, but so much fun. So much fun to just go through these things and soak up the detail. And it's fascinating to find something like that truck, but it's, there's some works like this where you take great joy in just slavering over every little possible, missed this or missed that. And to me in this movie, it's very different because it's so rare. Normally, the deeper you go, the more impressed you are by the detail. So when you do find something, like that truck, it's almost a pleasant surprise. Like, wait a minute, maybe the people making this movie were human after all.
Maybe they were human, yes.
Yeah. Maybe they were. If only we knew somebody involved with the production, like somebody perhaps in the acting department.
I have a question on the tail number for that. As we're going back, we're seeing Malcolm at the very end of this minute.
Oh, right.
And it looks like NC 469 Yankee.
469 Yankee.
And that's C for commercial, right? So it's a commercial plane?
Right. At the time, they were there was a short period when we were differentiating end numbers. There was C for commercial, NX for experimental, like NX 211, the Spirit of St. Louis, which I know we talked about. There was a restricted, and there were a few others too. And it wasn't long before We just consolidated. Said no, it has an N number period. So that's a Stinson SM-8, classic sort of touring airplane. Wouldn't be involved in a race, but that would certainly be an airplane that somebody might use for his crew to get to the race, something like that.
And what does N stand for?
So N is the letter that was assigned. That just means it's a U.S. registration.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe national, maybe
it could be any number of. There's a number of sort of conflicting explanations out there. I've yet to see a definitive one. Exactly what that process was. It's just the ICAO or its forerunners, help sort of define. What country's got what letter, and some of them are intuitive. Canada is C, and then mostly letters.
Deutschland, Germany is D, and Italy I, and
Great Britain is G. All those things that we got, and so I assume it's for United States. I have no idea what else, what else it could be. But since that's come up twice now, I should study that more deeply and then magically be an expert next time we talk.
Any idea what that logo is on the back of the Stinson? The arrow pointing straight in the air.
Oh, that's the Stinson logo itself. The sort of the poised bow, firing the arrow, and they used that in one form or another. Pretty much all of their airplanes.
Wow. And if we're speaking of logos, we're seeing Bigelow still trying to figure out Malcolm's role. He does work for Bigelow, as he has the Bigelow leisure suit on,
right. And he's all dressed up for he's wearing what he wore last night.
Yeah,
right. All dressed up for his big day in front of the crowd.
Yeah.
He did put on the hat. That's true. We've got to give him that. And then you see some people holding those Bigelow, the Air Circus programs, which you see a lot of repros of those on eBay, and I've seen a couple that at least claim to be original over the years, but have.
And the extra making the horrible mistake of staring directly at the camera in second 59.
Where's it in second 59? I have to see
he's holding the field glasses on the left, and it's like, "Hi, Mom."
Oh, there he goes. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I love watching. I love watching background. Sometimes, if I've seen a movie more than once, often I will be watching the background players. Because it can be quite amusing.
Yeah, I later on this in 2017, I'm going to be working on a Hitchcock minute with North by Northwest, and one of my favorite extra scenes is the kid sticking his fingers in his ears before Cary Grant gets shot, and it's not even subtle too. I mean, he just brings his fingers right up to his ears.
That's fantastic.
It's a classic.
And, mentioning very quickly, Jim, you were talking about wardrobe and things. It's amazing to point out just how beautifully everybody was dressed. As somebody involved with the biggest air show in the world here. Yeah. Given our heat, I can't say that I wish we all still dress this way, but maybe one day wouldn't it be nice?
I really kind of do.
I do too.
Yeah,
I do too. Wear shorts and tank tops and flip flops and things, but the women with these lovely hats, and every guy's got a fedora or gadabout of some kind, and ties and vests and things. It's wonderful.
I just think there's nothing like a good straw hat.
Yeah. And
exactly.
just something dapper. Anyway, this has been a great minute. I think this has been we've gone from Hollywood to the airfield, and much more to come. Oh gosh, somebody has one of those Bigelow's pennants. Now I've got to. I just noticed at the very end of the second.
The woman with her white gloves. Also, a thing we don't see at modern air shows very often is somebody in white gloves. So. And that's great too, because there's similar pennants, and maybe even one of those up in the Bulldog Cafe and all the great background scenes. But some of those pennants are also real air race pennants from the Cleveland races of the day.
Yeah.
So just it fits in just perfectly. And now I need one.
Well, we do have some people have sent in pictures of those many the things that Malcolm is handing out, those handouts from. I think all the extras wound up with at least one or two of them. And they're available on eBay, as we've noticed. But really, just the amount of detail in all this stuff is fantastic. Even if you're not seeing all of it on the camera, you get the sense that there's a lot more detail there that that they took the time to get all this together. But a great time was had by all. Anyway, well, this has been a good minute that we've squeezed every last drop out of, I think. We'll leave you to your champagne and margaritas. But Billy, thanks again for being on the show, and we will have you on again. Can't exactly say the time. We'll see what comes up next. But
yes.
Stay tuned. For people who want to leave us more questions for Billy on his next round, and we do have a lot of other fascinating people coming in. I mean, Billy is our most fascinating guy, but we do have other people with other topics. So if you have questions about the movie, send them in to us on a bunch of different social media: Twitter, Rocketeer Minute, Facebook, Rocketeer Minute's Bulldog, the Rocketeer's Bulldog Cafe at facebook.com/Rocketeer Minute, and also the big site rocketeerminute.com, where you can leave messages on any one of our episodes, and we will get back to you as can be seen by this show. So check back with us here tomorrow, and we'll follow more things that are going on the air show, and what's Malcolm going to do to make up for what happened with poor Jenny.
I wonder.
Yeah, we're going to find out. So check back with us here on the Rocketeer Minute. So until next time, over and out.
Over and out, boys. Thanks.
Go get him, kid.